Thank you for joining us for the Q&A for the bond question included in the November ballot for the Saco Water Resource Recovery Project. I'm Emily Roy. I'm the Director of Communications for the City of Saco. I'm here with Howard Carter, the Wastewater Director, and Stacy Thompson, the Deputy Director of the Water Resource Recovery Department. Today, they'll provide a brief PowerPoint presentation, show a video, and then be available to answer questions that you have about the project. We'll be taking questions both in the audience and through Facebook. So if you have a question, please submit it in the comments, and we will answer it shortly. I will turn it over to you, Howard.
Thank you, Emily, and welcome, folks. I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak to you today. Basically, this, like Emily laid out, will be a Q&A session on the bond question regarding the Water Resource Recovery Project. This project has a little bit of history behind it. Back in 2011, I believe it was, sea level rise was actually added to the city comp plan under resiliency study. We've been progressively getting worse with backing up with high tides for well over 20 years. So back in 2018, we initiated a climate adaptation plan because of significant facility flooding. In 2019, that study came out and that was distributed. Then in 2020, we were actually approached by the US EPA, wanted to know if we wanted to be involved in an augmented analysis of the treatment plant, alternative analysis. So we said, sure. So with that, the mayor and the city council selected what we called the Coastal Resiliency Strategic Group, and among them was Councilor Jody McPhail, Kurt Brown, Dan Chadburn, Edward Chenette, Gregory Copeland, Ashley Gonzalez, Althea Masterson, Kevin Masick, Kevin Roach, and Amy Stafford, and on city staff was myself, Emily Cole Prescott, Joe Laveria, the city engineer, Emily Roy, the communications director, and Stacy Thompson. So with that, we went and looked at 4 different alternatives on the upgrade of the facility. But just prior to we get into that, I'm going to show you a video that we recorded one Saturday in December of 2019 of what can happen with a rainstorm and a high tide condition at the facility. And Stacy's going to start that video right now. This is a shot of the Saco Water Resource Recovery Facility taken on Saturday, December 14th. On this particular day, we have received over 4 inches of rain, with the flow coming into the treatment plant at over 13 million gallons a day. So this is where the water enters the facility. As you can see, there's actually water cascading over the outside of the inlet structure to the headworks. This is due to the fact that from a high tide condition that we were actually bringing in more flow at over 13 million gallons a day than that was allowed to escape the plant because of the tidal condition. You can actually see the headworks facility where you do a lot of skirt removal is just barely being contained. Here you see a shot of another structure prior to the primary clarifier that is overflowing as well and is running down around the back of the primary clarifier. Here is the primary clarifier flooding. You can see that the arm takes a lot of the grease and the floatable solids is submerged. Here is a picture of our aeration basins. On the clip down below, you can see them at a normal operating level. And the above clip shows them submerged as they are and flooded, and we actually had to shut the air off to help contain the solids within the system. Here is a secondary clarifier that is actually in its normal operating condition. Here is the same clarifier flooded due to the storm. As you can see, there's no weirs for it to cascade over, although we were able to contain all our solids to be well within permit. Conditions like this do cause operational concerns. The staff has to be very diligent to try to contain everything within the vessels. In my over 25 years of working at the facility, this is the worst flooding that I have encountered to date, and it certainly has its operational challenges, and we hope to abate that with future work. Shooting over to the Storm King, and this alone. So folks, that's pretty much the gist of what we're doing with, not all flooding is certainly that bad, but certainly on most high tides, we will back up. Usually not to the case that it's overflowing the tanks, but seems to be getting progressively worse as the years go on. Wouldn't you say, Stacy? Yes, definitely. So about the same time we were doing that evaluation, the Maine Climate Council actually listed our facility as one of the facilities that is in most need within the state, and they gave a price tag to repair that facility of $43 million. Now, we use that on the basis of the alternative analysis study. The cost, that was one alternative, was to do nothing. And let me tell you a little bit what that represents. The cost of doing nothing is from the Maine Climate Council's adopted cost of doing nothing analysis included in the Maine Won't Wait Climate Action Plan. This analysis considers an upper and lower bound construction costs of a new treatment plant, but does not consider economic, social, and environmental impacts of not being able to treat the city's wastewater for a prolonged period. This report does provide a fundamental understanding costs if nothing were to be done, but does not represent the true economic and social and environmental impacts of an underwater treatment plant. These impacts could include beach closures, ongoing permit violations, discharge of dirty water directly to Saco River, no access to the public boat launch, or current riverwalk trail at the facility. This does not consider what would happen when Saco, a historically business-friendly community, is severely limited to accommodate business because of a non-functioning sewer services. So that was one of the four alternatives. There were three other alternatives involved as well, which involved these steps that Stacy has up. Number one was understanding the community priorities, determining the project goals, defining objectives, ranking the importance of the goals, establishing criteria, choose metrics for your criteria, create performance ranges, evaluate performance of each alternative, compare across alternatives, incorporate cost considerations. I think it's important to note here that we did not know the cost of any of these projects until the final launch at the end of the project. That's when the costs came in, and we'd weighed them on different scales till the costs come in, and that shifted. This one that you see, although a very, very significant cost, was not the most important one, and we kind of incorporated with that. So I'll lay out some of the steps of this project. As you can see on the screen, one of the first things we have to do is make room for the new treatment plant. There really was no other spots in Saco to build another treatment plant. There was Factory Island, across the street from Factory Island, that was considered, but that's under private property, and I don't believe they had any interest in moving that property to the city. So this is really all we had that was in coastal. We looked at maybe going way out by Public Works' new facility, but the cost of pumping back and forth and laying pipe would have been more than building a new treatment plant, plus you still would have had to build a treatment plant. So one of the first things we'd have to do is knock down the old Public Works garage. That's that spot up by the circular where the old boat ramp is. Stacy, maybe if you can go up and point to that, it might help.
Yeah, it's right here.
Right there, okay. So that would make room to make a new admin building. Now, the admin building now, Stacy, if you can move the mouse, is down with that blue box. That's the only spot that we have to build the new facility, because you have to keep in mind that the old facility has to keep running. We can't shut it down for construction. And this project alone is probably going to be, even if we voted on it positively in November, it would probably be 26 or 27 before this project is completed. So once we'd have to move the admin building in the garage up to where the old Public Works garage is. Then we'll have a laydown area that we can start building a new plant, which would incorporate a new headworks facility where we take the screenings and the grid out, and then we'll use this new technology called the granular sludge technology that all of those tanks that you see in the grassy area, those would be replaced except for one or two of them that would hold stormwater. So the goal with this new plant would be to help with sea level rise, bring the flow up where we could now take it up to 16 million gallons a day. It would help us eliminate what we have left for CSOs, so it would no longer be a CSO community if it all goes right. And it would help with the growth within the city right now. Right now, for years, flows had been going down because we'd been doing a lot of separation throughout the city. But in the last 5 or 6 years, that we've hit the bottom of that curve, and now the flows are going back up. It's getting so the plant is getting loaded with a lot of biological oxygen demand as it stands. So we're going to have to do something about that regardless. So we're really looking for a three-fer, I guess. Accommodate the sea level rise, grow with the community, and get rid of the CSOs. And the Department of Environmental Protection is also looking at nutrient requirements in our discharge permit, which we certainly don't have. Those are down in southern New England now, into New Hampshire. They're starting to crawl into the state around Casco Bay. There's been a lot of focus on nutrients there, so we're thinking those will be in our discharge permits coming up. As a matter of fact, we're going to meet with the DEP tomorrow on what might be in those type of things. So that's basically in a nutshell. Some sewer facts. Just go ahead before we go into some questions. Right now in the state of Maine, there is $1 billion worth of sewer work needed within the state. The DEP's acknowledged. Right now, the Saco's current debt per capita is $1,209. The average per capita debt in other communities is $3,829. Our legal debt limit is $375 million. I think right now, I can talk to Glennis, but I think we're carrying about $25 million. 70% of all new development has happened on the Saco sewer system, and the sewer system supports 7,500 jobs. The next slide is the current user fees, what people pay for sewer around the state or in our neighboring communities. You can see right now, Saco in 2021, the average sewer bill, now this is probably a family of four. If you're less people, it would be less, and if there's more, of course, it'd be more, is around $401, which is quite low compared to the rest of the communities. If we went in with the bond and we had, this would not affect the tax base. We're looking at $800,000 a year coming from TIF districts. The rest of this would come from sewer user fees. Your sewer bill, average sewer bill will go up to $549 a year. Now that's worst case scenario, saying that we'd have no growth in the community, that no one else would chip into it, and we would not use any of our sewer impact fee assessments that go to new construction and new businesses. We plan on using some of that to reduce that rate as well. So that would be the worst case scenario. Oh, and that's not including any federal funding that we may have. The goal is to any federal funding that we do receive to lower that rate from the $50 million. Basically, that's in a nutshell all this, but that's just some neighboring benefit rates. We don't need to really show that. But with that, I think we open it up to any questions, Emily, if we have any.
We have received one question, so you may have touched on this a little bit, but has the department applied for any grants? And if so, how would the grants offset the bond cost?
Very good question. We did early on, the Senate had what they were calling earmarks reintroduced, where each senator or representative could request from Congress additional monies for projects. We were actually listed on Susan Collins's and Senator King's list. Each of them have appropriated to us $3.92 million for the first phase of the project. That would be the phase of the project where we knocked down the old Public Works garage. We moved the new admin building over to there. Also, we're going to raise the street level so it's not flooded anymore. We're going to light the area up a little bit better. We're going to put public bathrooms down there. And we're also looking to have a pump-out facility for the Saco Fire Department and regional communities. Now, just because it's appropriated in the Senate does not mean it's been voted on yet. The House and the Senate still has to vote on the budget. There is other money supposedly coming down. You see this infrastructure money being discussed on the news all the time. If that does become available, we certainly want to be in a position to apply for that.
Thank you for that. Another question, if sea level rise is a factor, then why not build on a different site?
Well, that would be, but we just can't find a site. That happens to be, that's the biggest issue. Right, we'd have to go way inland. We'd probably have to deal with neighbors that would not want a treatment plant in their facility, in their neighborhood, and all the other things that go along with that. So it's the pumping aspect of it that would be the big issue.
Thank you. So on the website, we also have an FAQ page for this project, which you can find on sacomaine.org, and there's a project FAQ. Howard, can you also go through some of the questions and answers that have been provided before today?
Sure, yep. Stacy, you want to take one?
So the first question that was asked was if Saco does nothing and the facility is wiped out by a storm, wouldn't federal funds from FEMA or other sources be available to rebuild? First of all, we never want our treatment plant wiped out. We are alerting the council and the community to risks that are present now, and hopefully we are never at the point where the facility is wiped out by a storm. We are already experiencing ongoing hydraulic backups, which means the treated water can't leave the facility. We have experienced flooding and intensifying CSO events. We cannot say definitively whether federal funds would be available in such a situation. From our perspective, we try to be proactive rather than reactive, especially as we are so near the Saco River, a significant state resource.
Do one more?
So the next question that was asked of us was, what does a yes or no vote mean on this question? A yes vote means that you want the bond order to be ratified and approved, and a no vote means that you do not want the bond order to be ratified and approved.
I think another thing I can weigh into, we touched on TIF funding. Maybe Glennis, can you talk about that a little bit? I know we are cognizant of the school construction issue, and we're trying to stay away from using the general fund whatsoever. So what that typically means, if you're not on sewer now, you would not see a rate increase into your taxes or whatnot. But Glennis can touch on what a TIF is and maybe how that would work.
Certainly. So the city has a number of tax increment financing districts. That is what the TIF stands for. Tax increment financing districts are financial instruments made available by the state of Maine to municipalities to shelter economic growth in certain areas of the municipality from the state education and revenue sharing formulas. So in other words, as your municipality gains value, the state reduces its aid in the form of education and state revenue sharing to those municipalities. By creating tax increment financing districts, we shelter that growth from the state formula, which maintains state level funding and allows us to use the growth within those districts to support economic initiatives. We certainly consider the sewer treatment plant to be a significant economic resource for business development in our community because it reduces the cost of new economic development in areas that are serviced by our sewer. Therefore, in collaboration with our economic development team, we have determined that tax increment financing district revenues are available to support the sewer treatment plant rebuild in the amount of $800,000 per year. This ensures that no new property taxes need to be raised in order to support this initiative. The entire bond payments will be supported by a combination of these existing tax revenues from the tax increment financing districts and some increase to your sewer rates. But again, as Director Carter had presented, the impact of those sewer rate increases will still keep Saco within range of our neighboring communities and their rate levels. So that's what this slide presents. You can see in the middle it says Saco 2025. That indicates the average annual cost of sewer fees with the rate increases. Currently planned is a 15% plus 15% plus 7% increase, which is less than half of the main water rate increase for their treatment plant rebuild.
Thank you, Glennis. Any other questions?
Another question is, where do Saco community members vote? So I can answer this one. So absentee voting is occurring now. You can pick up an absentee ballot currently. The last day to vote in person prior to the election or to pick up your absentee ballot is Thursday, October 28th. And then all community members in Saco vote at the community center. So on November 2nd, if you will be participating in Election Day, then you would go to the community center to vote. And that's on Franklin Street in Saco.
Do we have any other FAQs that we can?
Yeah, there was some.
All right, you want to read it on the one or two? Sure.
So some other questions that were asked of our department was whether we considered the possibility of constructing a combined wastewater treatment plant with the city of Biddeford. We obviously consider all options going into this project, which is not limited to regional options. However, we have a vast network of pipes under the ground, which we refer to as our collection system. It's already in place. It directs all the flow to the treatment plant via gravity, and that's a unique thing for a facility. Typically, there are pump stations involved at the treatment facility to pump to a higher treatment. And the cost of repiping this collection system would be astronomical to accommodate one flow to a treatment plant, because a pipe can only handle so much, so we would have to expand upon that to treat 2 communities.
Well, I think on top of that, too, Biddeford is in the same situation as us, so there just isn't a lot of land available. We're trying to almost double the size of ours. If we tried to double the size of Biddeford's as well, there's just not enough room, and the cost would be considerable.
Correct, and that's really, the cost of it would be well more than what we're currently going to bond for.
Any others? Let's do the sea level rise, and we'll just pause till we hear something else, I guess. Maybe there'll be some more later this evening.
Again, this goes back to why not build on higher ground. It is important to note that threats are not just about sea level rise, but also include weather events, storm water, hydraulic backups, aging infrastructure, and limitations to accommodate future growth. The project costs include remediation of all of these threats, not just sea level rise. The possibility of building an entirely new facility on higher ground was considered. However, the existing collection system is tied to the current facility. Moving the treatment plant to a higher location would require moving this existing piping, which would mean construction in neighborhoods and significant work to relocate this piping. The plan for the site includes provisions to raise structures to heights that are resilient to sea level rise.
And that goes to raising the access road by the old Public Works garage and the boat ramp and the yacht club to accommodate that. That elevation of that road's gonna have to come up almost 4 feet just to stop the flooding. But anything else? Yeah, we can take a break, see if someone comes on.
So we'll take a break for a few minutes. Feel free to enter any questions that you have in the comments. If you happen to think of any questions after the live stream, feel free to visit our website. We'll have right on the landing page, sacomaine.org, a link to submit questions and the FAQ page there, so you can follow up and see the answers to other questions that have been asked. So we'll take a quick break. Feel free to ask any questions, and we'll resume in just a few minutes.
So those are the last 2 questions.
Yeah, we could always bring them back. That was a good answer.
We're back from the break. We have not received any additional questions in the comments. So at this point, we'd like to point you to the project page at sacomaine.org/resiliency. That's RESILIENCY. And you can learn more about the project. If you have questions following this session, please feel free to continue to submit them in the comments, and we will respond to them during the evening session tonight at 6:30. So if you have a question that comes to you later, please feel free to submit that. You can also find contact information on the website if you'd like to submit a question separately from Facebook.
Set. Thank you, Emily.